Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think we are almost ready to start. We have our participants online, I hope, as well, so I don't want to lose too much time. We have a lot to discuss, so if the doors can be closed. So good morning, everyone. My name is Lina Mahi. I'm sorry my voice is a little bit rough. I'm working for the World Health Organization. I'm the technical officer in the Department of Nutrition and Food Safety. And I'll be your moderator this morning, 75 minutes that we are together. So I want to use as much time as possible to have good discussions and interactions. Thank you also to our countries, member states that are supporting this event, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK. So thank you very much for that. So what is this event about? It's about integrated climate and nutrition, an essential action if we want to address zero hunger. This event also is a joint organization of partners that are engaged in the Initiative of Climate Action and Nutrition, FAO, GAIN, Scaling Up Nutrition Movement, and WHO. Just some house rules to start us off. There is translation for this event in French, English, and Arabic. And for those joining online as well, you can push the button on the right corner where there is the globe and select your preferred language. There is also a chat box for those that are online, where you can put your comments and your questions, and there are people from our team that will be responding to your questions online. Also, please note that this event is recorded and it will be posted on the CFS website later this week. So this is a little bit of the logistics. So, malnutrition and climate change, they are two of the greatest challenges that we face today, and they are intertwined. So there are solutions to address these problems, we all know that, and it happens to be that the solutions to address malnutrition, many of those are also good for planetary health. So why not combine them? This is the topic of this event, to link climate action and nutrition action together to accelerate progress in both of these issues. A little bit about the Initiative of Climate Action and Nutrition. This initiative, under the leadership of the Egyptian government and the Egyptian presidency of COP27, it was launched last year in Sharm el-Sheikh. And since then, we have been working very hard to get the ball rolling on this initiative. So what do we want to do? First of all, we want to foster collaboration between these communities of climate action, climate activists, people working on climate change, and people working on ending malnutrition in all its forms. They need to be brought together. Sorry, so sometimes I will have to drink a little bit. So what we want to do this morning is to present you what ICAN is about, the ICAN approach. Some say, like yesterday in the plenary, some member states said they support the ICAN approach. So the idea is to combine these two agendas. We want to also update you on important work that has been happening. There will be a session or a first segment of this event presenting the important work, developing two papers that will be presented by our speakers here. These two papers are an important work and are the result of a collaboration of the team of ICAN. But not only that, we will then also discuss together with partners and stakeholders, because we're not starting from scratch. There are already stakeholders, organizations that are trying to link these two agendas, and we want to hear from them. How are they doing it? What are the challenges? Then finally, we are here at the CFS So also, how can the CFS help in connecting these two agendas? How can the voluntary guidelines and all the policy documents that have been developed and approved, how can they help in also connecting these two agendas? But before that, we would like to hear also some opening remarks. And we will start from, on my left, with Maarten de Groot, who is the Deputy Permanent Representative of Canada to the Rome-based agencies. That will be followed by Radio Save, who is there as well, representing the GAF, it's such a difficult acronym, the GAF-SP, and we will learn also because GAF-SP is an organization that also already tries to bring these two agendas together. So Maarten, first we listen to you, over to you.
Thanks very much, and good morning, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure to offer a few brief remarks to open up this CFS side event. First of all, as mentioned, I'd like to start by thanking Egypt for having brought this agenda into COP27 last year, which was really at the heart and the origin of the ICANN initiative that was mentioned. Climate change and malnutrition are two of the greatest challenges facing humanity today. And apart from the direct cost of human suffering, the impact on the global economy of malnutrition in all its forms is estimated to be $3.5 trillion each year. And climate change is predicted to cost $178 trillion by 2070. These are truly staggering figures if you think of how many zeros are behind those numbers. Today, we'll discuss how these two threats are intrinsically intertwined, and importantly, how we can respond in an integrated manner. We know that climate change impacts agri-food, water, social protection, health systems, and these are all the systems that provide the basis for fundamental good nutrition. And as was already mentioned, across all systems, there's options for jointly addressing both climate and nutrition, but these need to be scaled. And that's where the focus really should lie. But also on the picture of the evidence that underpins this information so that we can have a stronger evidence base to drive us forward. And so with that, today we have two reports that we'll be looking at. First, a report led by the FAO that's entitled Climate Action and Nutrition, Pathway to Impact, which focuses on exactly that, the evidence for response options for integrating climate and nutrition that have the potential for positive effects. That report will be launched. Then we'll follow with launching a second report led by the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, entitled Accelerating Action and Opening Opportunities, a Closer Integration of Climate and Nutrition. This report outlines the current situation with regards to integration of climate and nutrition action and establishes global baselines for key outcomes. Measurement is key, so having those baselines is essential. I'd also like to thank our colleagues from the GAF-SP, WHO, FAO, and GAIN, who've all collectively been working and placing their energy behind these initiatives. The discussion from GAF-SP will feature some examples of integrated climate nutrition actions and strategies implemented in various projects to get some concrete examples on the table by championing countries and by farmers in response to climate and nutrition challenges. Also, we'll see some experiences from forest and farm producer organizations supported by the Forest and Farm Facility in the course of the morning. Today's report and the panel discussion will highlight some of the innovative responses options while shining a spotlight on the exciting opportunities that lie before us all as a collective in this room. Before I turn back or turn over to Radio, I'd just like to share that this evening as well, along with our colleagues from New Zealand and the UK, Canada will be co-hosting a reception on the theme of climate and nutrition in the atrium at 6:15 right after the plenary session. And so we hope to see you there, and we hope to have a good discussion this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for these welcoming remarks, and I hope to see many of you this evening for the reception. Please, Mr. Radio, the floor is your team leader, UK FCDO.
Thank you, and thank you, Maarten, as well for your words. I'm delighted to have been invited to say a few words this morning. It's very reassuring, comforting to see a big room like this with people that have been choosing to come here this morning quite early, notwithstanding a long day and a long week of other meetings. I've been invited here as the UK alternate representative on the GFSP steering committee. The UK has been contributing for many years and consistently to the program. The program, the long acronym means actually a global agriculture and food security program. It's very good to see nutrition and climate to be brought together as two fundamental constituents of the broader food security or food systems agenda, if you want, and brought together to try to exploit synergies and to avoid missing opportunities. I'm looking forward to hearing about the latest, let me call them global policy developments in the first two presentations. But then my role here is to introduce more the second part, where we are going to be looking at practical implementation. So even if the global policy is evolving, we need not to wait to implement best practice. And this is something that a global program like GFSP can help doing and has been already doing. So it's a wide reaching program, and so probably I mean, frankly, I cannot think about another one that has that spread and size and muscles to test things. So just to say, under one roof there is more than 10 donors. There is all the multilateral agencies and banks that are relevant for global food security. It spans more than 50 countries in terms of programs. It brings together a public sector window where there are both country government-led programs in countries, as well as projects promoted by producers' organizations. And then it brings also under the same roof a private sector window that invests in the private sector. And so collectively, I think the latest figures on mobilization over the years since inception in 2010 is in excess of $2 billion. So it's not a small thing. Of course, is not sufficient, but sizable. And yes, I'm looking forward to hearing from GFSP colleagues how nutrition and climate objectives have been integrated in some or hopefully all of the projects funded by GFSP ultimately. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and let's listen to the presentation.
Thank you very much, Radio, for this. Without further ado, let's listen to our two speakers and presenters. Just for you to know, there is a leaflet on your desk. You can download the reports by scanning the QR code. For those online, there will be links in the chat to download the report so that you can also read it more. So please, yeah, thank you very much. So Nancy Aburto, welcome. Nancy is a good colleague of mine, and she will present the first paper. She's the Deputy Director of the Food and Nutrition Division in FAO, and she will present the first paper on the linkages. Nancy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lena. And good morning, everyone here in the room. It's great to see a full room. And for those of you online, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Not sure where you're joining us from. It's my pleasure to be here on behalf of FAO presenting a glimpse into our paper on climate action and nutrition, pathways to impact. And I do have limited time, so it will really only be a glimpse, but I hope that it's enough to inspire you to go directly to the link that I'm trying to show. There we go, thank you. Because, as we said, today's a launch, so the paper is now live. You can scan that QR code real quickly, or you can scan the QR code on the paper that's in front of you for those in the room, and those online, the link is being dropped into the chat. Now, this was led by FAO, but I do want to acknowledge the contributions of WHO and GAIN to this paper because their input was also vital for its completion. So what did we do? In this paper, we made a review of reviews, recapping the plethora of evidence around the systems underpinning good nutrition. Those, of course, are agri-food, water, social protection, and health. We then looked at the evidence of the relationship of each of these systems to climate change. And finally, we described the evidence-informed response options with the potential to positively impact both climate and nutrition-relevant outcomes across each of those systems. Our results reaffirmed that strong relationship between each of the systems in nutrition, and also indeed that there's a plethora of evidence around a bi-directional relationship between each of these systems and climate change. And just a few examples of the impact of climate change on these systems is that higher sea levels, warmer oceans, and ocean acidification are leading to negative impacts on aquatic species biodiversity and altering the distribution of wild fish stocks. While changes in precipitation are contributing to approximately half of the world's population suffering from severe water scarcity at least 1 month out of the year. Shocks are impeding communities and households' ability to invest in long-term livelihood opportunities, while novel illnesses are straining health systems and thus limiting their ability to deliver appropriate services and care. And this is something that resonates with all of us just having come out of a global pandemic. And this, of course, is just to name a few examples. We found that each of the systems also impact climate. A few examples here: agri-food systems alone account for 1/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions, a statistics I think that you are all probably very familiar with. Inefficiencies in water systems are increasing the risk of pollution from industry and domestic sewage, while social protection systems that are not responsive to climate change are increasing the implementation of maladaptation practices, and health systems continue to contribute to chemical and hazardous waste contamination, damaging ecosystems. But colleagues, it's not all bad news. With that established relationship between each of these systems and climate, and that reaffirmation of the relationship with good nutrition, we have established the plausibility that actions within each of these systems can potentially result in climate and nutrition relevant outcomes simultaneously. So we dug into that literature and found what integrated actions had a strong evidence base for being a response option to simultaneously positively benefit climate and nutrition. Now, I don't have time to go into all of it, but I'll give one example from each of the systems. And I want to orient you just a moment to my slide. You're going to see a lot of references on that slide, so visually it's slightly busy, but I want to re-emphasize that every statement I make here is based on the published literature, and that's the important point. So one example from agri-food systems is that diversifying crop and animal production while protecting genetic resources can increase resilience to temperature and precipitation change, weather event shocks, pest and disease, while simultaneously increasing the availability of a variety of foods for consumption and improving nutrient intake. However, very importantly, we recognize that these results are not automatic. They're not guaranteed. And though, again, limited time does not allow me to dive into great detail here. I just want to note that the paper takes note of some key enablers that need to be in place to be supportive of success, and you'll see that indicated here on the slide. So moving on to water systems, an example of an integrated action is enabling gender-responsive wash, that is water sanitation and hygiene, can strengthen climate change preparedness and resilience, while simultaneously ensuring water and sanitation for all and reducing discrimination and violence against women and girls. An example from the social protection system is also gender-oriented. Employing a gender transformative approach that focuses on justice and equity and recognizes the social contexts that are currently limiting women and girls to reach their full potential, as well as recognizing their nutritional vulnerability, can reduce the usage of negative coping strategies and maladaptation practices, while also reducing the nutritional vulnerability of women and girls and improving household care and health. And finally, the health system. An integrated action that I want to highlight here is the full employment of a One Health approach. That means fully considering health problems holistically across species and sectors to connect health systems for multi-species health promotion. This can protect resources by reducing food waste and by implementing multidisciplinary actions focused on ecological, animal, and human health, while also more effectively and successfully addressing health problems at that animal, human, plant, and environment interface. So in conclusion, our paper found that there are multiple entry points for potential positive impact on nutrition and climate relevant outcomes from integrated actions at the systems level, backed by strong evidence. And that the overlap and complementarity of systems suggest that multiplier effects are possible. For example, that gender-sensitive wash that I mentioned is not only beneficial for water systems, of course, but also protects sufficient water needed for robust, sustainable agri-food systems. We also found that gender equity, inclusion, and transformative action was a key integrated action in each of the systems. However, once again, the evidence suggests that impact is not guaranteed. And though I highlighted that we indicate some key enablers in our paper, that is an area where we still have much to learn. But one thing that we do know for sure is that each of these systems has the potential to be both climate smart and nutrition sensitive simultaneously, to ensure healthy diets, safe food, clean water, enhanced coping, and less illness from systems that have significantly reduced overall greenhouse gas emissions, protect biodiversity, preserve natural resources, and increase resilience, resulting in a virtuous cycle of healthier people and stronger communities with a reduced vulnerability, which in turn can drive sustainable development. And with that, I conclude my presentation, and I hope that it was indeed enough to inspire you to download the full report and give it a look. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nancy. And indeed, I mean, if we talk about, oh, we have to connect these agendas, read the paper to get some concrete examples, like Nancy already mentioned, like how do we go about it? What is important is that we need these early adopters and courageous governments and donors that are willing to invest in this connection, as Nancy showed. Without further ado, Jessica Colston, welcome. She will present the second paper. Jessica is the environmental technical lead of the Global Alliance of Improved Nutrition, GAIN. She will present the second paper that we have developed on ICANN, because we have to know where we stand. We need to know what is our baseline to be able to monitor progress of the connection in the future. Jessica, the floor is yours.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Lena, and thanks for the fantastic introductions from Nancy and Radio and Martin. I think it sets us up really nicely to move into the second paper we're launching under the Initiative on Climate Action and Nutrition today, which is all about what is actually happening in climate and nutrition action. In both worlds, there's so much happening across policy, across finance, across research, but how integrated are those agendas? And as Martin mentioned, can we quantify that? When we measure it, what does it tell us about what's happening today and where we need to be in the future? So just to set the scene, I wanted to include this quote, which is from the foreword of the report. And we're delighted to receive the support of the government of Egypt and the government of the UAE with this foreword. And I think it tells this story. We started in COP27 under the leadership of the government of Egypt in launching the Initiative on Climate Action and Nutrition. We've gone away, we've really looked at, what is happening on that action agenda. And then next month in November, we will be together in Dubai for COP28, where under the leadership of the UAE, we hope that we'll continue to advance these integrated agendas of food and health and nutrition. So what have we actually done introducing the report? So the report here does something quite different. What we've tried to do is develop a new methodology, something that's not been done before, that really sets out what is happening in climate and nutrition action. You can see there we've analysed 13 different indicators across 4 pillars. As I say, they cover things like global kind of policies like nationally determined contributions, national adaptation plans, national nutrition plans, but also national level policies like food-based dietary guidelines and public procurement. We also looked at research agendas, the IPCC reports, but also the Global Nutrition Report. And we looked at finance to see how much this is actually being funded and taken forward, looking at official development aid and the funding from some individual financial institutions. So why have we done this? As I mentioned before, I think this serves as a mirror. It tells us where we currently are in integrated climate and nutrition action. It tells us where we might want to be in the future. And in the report, you will also see some examples highlighted where we really felt there were examples of good integrated action that we can learn from and hopefully use to guide us as we try to accelerate action further. So just a brief word on methodology here before we get into the meat of the results. I really wanted to highlight that we didn't just look at whether or not nutrition is included in a climate policy or whether climate features in a nutrition policy, but we really tried to measure the level of integration across the two. So you can see here the 4 levels which are used throughout the report, which go from no interlinkages made between the 2 areas, all the way through to committing to mobilizing resources and distinct plans that really tell us that the action is happening. So I think this is, as Nancy said, just time for a snapshot from the report. I do encourage you to read the full results. But the overall picture is there is a significant lack of integration between nutrition and climate action. When we look at nationally determined contributions, we found that 60% make no reference, no linkage at all between nutrition and climate. But when we look at that scale of how meaningful the connection is, only 2% actually have concrete plans to take action to address nutrition. When we look at financing and we look at official development aid that's going towards climate, so we looked at the climate financing, we found that only 1% explicitly references nutrition. If we look at the private sector, and I don't know if colleagues from WBA are here, I know they're launching the 2023 benchmark tomorrow, so I hope you're able to join that, but using the previous data, we found that there were no companies that scored strongly both on climate and nutrition. But reflecting back into the nutrition world, equally 95% of those Global Nutrition Report commitments did not consider climate or sustainability. And when we look at public procurement and looking at those nutrition-related policies, we found that 83% did not consider climate or sustainability either. So we can see across the board, when we look at climate policies and financing, we don't see nutrition included, but there's also a long way to go for the nutrition community to also incorporate climate and sustainability considerations. So coming forward to some of the thematic trends, the report is very rich. These are just a couple that I really wanted to highlight in this presentation. One of the things we found most stark was the regional trends when we broke down the analysis across different regions. So you can see on the slide here, this is the nationally determined contributions. And we can see in North America, in Western Europe, and Eastern Europe, there are very few that have meaningful connection made to nutrition. But when we look at those from Africa in particular, but also in Asia and the Pacific and Latin America and the Caribbean, we can see there are far more NDCs that are considering nutrition in full, making linkages to other policies, linking to investments and the way those countries are investing in nutrition. When we look at finance, I mentioned this result earlier, but I wanted to come back to it because I think we feel particularly strongly that even where we're seeing policies that are integrating nutrition and climate together, it doesn't appear that funding is following. This is a very challenging thing to measure, which is a point in itself I'd love to come back to in the Q&A. But when we look at this climate-related ODA between 2019 and 2021, we find that only 1% makes an explicit reference to nutrition. If you do expand that analysis and you include other relevant keywords around diets or around NCDs or other things, you can see that we do get to 11% of that funding, which we might consider as an element relevant to nutrition. And the other point I wanted to highlight is really how we reflect on nutrition versus food security in these documents. And we fully recognize the importance of including food security into all of these policies and investments. It's obviously a very important prerequisite to have nutrition security. But we did feel that often food security was mentioned where there was an opportunity to build on that and to go further to incorporate nutrition and to really contribute to having a more holistic outcome around health and nutrition security as well as food security. So like Nancy, I would encourage you to please do download the full report. I would also really like to acknowledge the contribution of partners within ICANN, WHO, SUN and FAO have been fantastic collaborators, but also outside the ICANN initiative, we had a number of people support us, reach out, provide data, which we are really, really grateful for. As I said, this was a snapshot today. Please do review the data in full, the case studies and examples in the report, and the other thematic areas that we've looked at. We really hope that this is a starting point as we get to COP28 to really consider where we need to see that action that takes us forward. I look forward to discussing further in the Q&A. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Jessica. And from this presentation, I think you realize that it's easier said than done to integrate these agendas. We have a lot to do to make sure that our policies, our funding, our financing, and our monitoring systems allow that we can measure this integration. May I now call on our panel members to come to the podium, please? Also, keep your questions for Nancy and Jessica. We'll have a joint Q&A if time allows after the panel discussion. Okay, so now we will listen to what is already currently happening by our different stakeholders. So I will start with Mr. Adama Touré. Adama, you are the program manager of the GAF-SP program. We've heard already from Mr. Radio already a little bit what your program is about, but if you want to elaborate a little bit on it, and then let us know, are you already doing what we would like you to do, which is integrate climate and nutrition action for the program? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Lena, and thank you to the presenter for this very compelling evidence on a very serious subject matter. The FSP was set back in 2010 from the food and nutrition crisis by the G20 as a coordination mechanism to prevent, future crises and invest in agriculture for longer-term sustainability. So it is exactly the kind of platform that you alluded to in terms of collaboration in your welcoming speech, bringing together development partners, country, but also lead technical agencies, MDBs, together to confront the challenges of food and nutrition security. Regarding the topics that we are discussing today, one key element of the GAFSP is that the governing structure of these programs allow us to create the enabling environment to deliberately tackle this kind of issue. In 2018, there was the program evaluation, and the steering committee came with a bold idea of moving forward the needle on climate, nutrition, and gender, to add another layer, because, women in particular are disproportionately affected by all these two issues. So as a way of addressing those issues, we take it up front from the call for proposal that the GAFSP prepares. The guideline is very deliberate in integrating those topics. And we have a standing technical committee, advisory committee with high level expertise that screen all the projects, all the proposals before the GAFSP provide funding to those. I think that this play a critical role in helping to move forward on this topic.
So can I ask, so you are, from the onset of a proposal, you're screening to see whether there is already this connection between these two agendas?
Absolutely.
And how you do
we
that?
screen the tree. We have guidelines, and the guidelines make sure that these three subject matter, which are climate, nutrition, and gender, are well taken into consideration in the project proposal. Now, let me just tell you that the model of GAFSP is unique in its structure. In a sense that, as I said, it's a platform of collaboration, but at the same time, the governance structure allows to take all the perspective, including from the civil society organization and also recipient countries, etc. And by the way, this is the opportunity also to a little bit explain what it is all about in terms of financing. We have a public sector window which finance country, but also finance directly producer organization. And in addition to that, we have the private sector that Reggio alluded to, which also try to include smallholder farmers through agribusiness and value chain development projects. This being said, and from the action point that you mentioned just in the report, I was looking at the figure and say, okay, finally GAFSP seems to be the right instrument to boost this kind of agenda, because as of today, since these evaluation in 2018, we have 77% of our projects which are kind of nutrition sensitive. And as Reggio said, we have $2 billion portfolio, which is sizable, and 77% of this project, including 96% project under the public sector window and 106 project under private sector windows, 77% is not that, it is really significant. And all of the projects since 2019 are climate sensitive. So I think this upfront, engagement in addressing the issue is extremely important. And as a result, we see an increasing number of projects actually integrating the nutrition and climate. And I'm hopeful because, 10 years ago, if you remember well, the issue of nutrition into food security was not so obvious.
Absolutely not.
It's the same debate that we are having actually between climate and nutrition, right? And I think that we are moving the right direction. It just takes, some more coordination and deliberate engagement from all partners to move the needle forward. I can give you some example later on if you want, on some of the projects that we are working on with some results.
Thank you very much, Adama. I think it's really interesting to see that you are already trying from the onset of building a program to do that integration. So we can learn a lot from you. And we hope to be able to continue with other examples. But now let me turn to my left. Dr. Fomi Intichak, you are the Deputy Director General of the Department of Planning and Cooperation of the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry of the Lao PDR. Now we come to the real touching the ground. How in Lao PDR are you trying to connect these two agendas? Can you give us some examples of the work that you do, and maybe also some of the challenges that you face? Over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share the experience of Laos or Lao PDR. So in short, the relationship between the climate and nutrition in Laos is complex and influenced by a variety of factors, including weather patterns, food availability, and food storage and preservation practices. So on the positive side, the warm weather allows for a year-round growing seasons, which means that there is a wide variety of fresh fruit, vegetables available for the whole year round. This can provide a rich source of essential vitamin, and that are important for maintaining the good health and preventing the malnutrition. However, the climate can also have a negative effects on nutrition. For example, the hot and humid conditions can lead to an increased risk of food spoilage and contamination, which can cause illness and disease. This can be particularly problematic in rural areas where the food storage and preservation facilities may be limited. So in addition, climate can also impact the availability of the food sources. For example, drought and floods can impact crop yield and reduce the availability of the certain foods, and which can lead to food insecurity and malnutrition. So addressing these issues require a multi-factor approach that include improving the agricultural practices, increasing access to nutritious foods, and promoting food safety and hygiene practices. In terms of the success stories in the Laos or Lao PDR, I would like to mention a few highlights on the climate and nutrition efforts and their impact on local communities. One success approach to improve the nutrition and resilience to climate change in Laos is the promotion of integrated farming systems. These systems involve combining crops, livestock, and forestry to create a diversified and sustainable farming system. This approach has been successfully in increasing food security and improving nutrition in rural community. There's another success strategy is the implementation of community-based nutrition program, as stated in our National Plan of Action on Nutrition to 2025. These programs involve working with local communities to identify the causes of malnutrition and develop locally appropriate solutions. For example, the Lao government has implemented the program that provide training and support to mothers, helping them to improve their child's nutrition through better feeding practices and School meal programs have also been proving success. The third one is the climate smart agriculture practices such as conservation agriculture have also been successfully or successful in implementing nutrition and resilient to climate change in Laos. On the regulatory framework to guide the climate, nutrition, and food system in the country, we have a robust National Nutrition Committee, as mentioned earlier, which is supervised by our Deputy Prime Minister and composed of three main ministries: agriculture, education, and health. So in addition, the Nutrition Committee has been actively functioning and working closely with local communities to initiate the primary actions aimed at the driving behavior change and promoting climate, nutrition, food system, and transformation in the country. So this is the key success story, demonstrate the importance of addressing the climate and nutrition issues together and the effectiveness of the community-based approach in improving resilience and well-being in vulnerability communities. And without saying this, I have opportunity also to share a little bit more about the ODA projects.
Maybe I can come back to that.
Sure, yes.
I just want to say that in Laos, what you started saying is that there's really this bi-directional connection between climate and nutrition that also is in the paper and that Nancy referred to. You also mentioned that you have this multi-sectoral nutrition committee where there are agriculture, education, and health are there. So there's a Ministry of Environment. Is there collaboration there? And is there maybe a role for this nutrition committee to really help in getting this connection?
Yes. So thank you. So as I mentioned, it's you already mentioned that it's multi-sector approach. But the main one is, for sure, is linking to nutrition. We have health. And then we, agriculture, provide food according to what health tell us to do so. And then for sure, in order to ensure we produce enough, we need like Monterey, they responsible directly on the environment and climate, and so we work together. And not only in order to supply, when we produce and supply to the whole country, we need the transportation. That is the Ministry of Public Transportation is also involved, and others.
Thank you for that. So you see, we have so many sectors that need to work together, and everybody has a role to play. Thank you for that. Let me now go to our next speaker, who is Mr. Julian Lampietti, Practice Manager for Global Engagement in the World Bank Agriculture and Food Global Practice. So World Bank means money. So how is the World Bank trying to connect these agendas? Can you give some examples? Are there any challenges in bringing these agendas together? Over to you.
Thank you much, Lena. And I understand I have an hour to talk, so please bear with me. And just to my team, thank you for preparing the notes. I'm going to go wildly off script here, but don't freak out. I've got this under control. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to the previous presenters for their exciting work, and great to hear all of these reflections from the colleagues on the panel. Now, I want to talk about three things: knowledge, preparedness, and financing. And notice the financing comes third, because knowledge and preparedness are more important than financing. And of course, the World Bank is known for its money, but we should also be known for our knowledge. Now, we know the food system is not fit for purpose, and we heard from the colleagues earlier, 1/3 of greenhouse gas emissions are coming from this food system, but it is also a leading cause of bad and unhealthy diets. And everyone talks about malnutrition, 10% of the population is malnourished, but the other part of that is 40% of the population is overweight, and that's a major problem when it comes to nutrition. So we have to fix the food system, and we have to change its impact on climate, and we have to change the impact of climate on it. We are destroying the planet as we try to feed ourselves. So what are we doing about this? And I want to go really at a high level here. I'm not going to talk about specific project interventions. First and foremost, we're generating a series of knowledge products, actually in conjunction with FAO and other partners. And one thing we want to do is figure out, does the poverty line, which is set at $2.15 a day, actually address the nutrition issue? Because we know the poverty line is calculated based on calories, but just consuming calories does not lead to healthy diets. And the cost of unhealthy diets on a healthcare system and our economies is vast. And so how could we look at that poverty line and redefine it to actually be based on a good and nutritious diet? That does mean the poverty line is going to go up. That does mean a lot of political implications, but it's a very important thing to think about. And that can change the entire landscaping of financing that goes towards poverty. The second thing we're doing is we're looking at the burden of disease. And our colleagues mentioned this earlier, but really looking at, so how much is this bad nutrition costing governments? The third thing we're looking at very, very closely is the impact of public policies, and in particular support to agriculture, on healthy diets. And so how do we rethink the way ministries of agriculture spend their money supporting crops and other things to really support more nutritious diets? And I'll give you an example. Sugar. We all love sugar. We're programmed to consume more sugar, and governments love to subsidize sugar. Yet sugar does nothing for us from a health perspective. It makes us happy because it tastes good, but it's killing us. And so why would a government spend money subsidizing a sugar industry and then spend money paying the healthcare costs of its people? I'm not saying don't produce sugar. Go ahead and produce sugar. Let's just not use the public's money to do it, because it's like throwing it down in the waste bin. So those are a couple of things we're doing on knowledge that I think are very exciting. On preparedness, there's nothing quite like anticipating a crisis is going to come and being prepared to deal with it. And we have two specific areas that we're working with all of our partners on when it comes to this. The first is we've set up a food and nutrition security dashboard, which provides real-time data as much as available on food security, on nutrition, and many other aspects. And the idea there is that at the country level, all the partners and the government working in a specific country can go online and see all of the different bits and parts of data that exist for their country, and therefore come together and have better policy design and better anticipatory action. The second thing we're doing is we're working on what we call food security crisis preparedness plans, and there's 25 of them underway at the country level. And those plans are really designed to help the government identify what sources of financing it has available to it and how it's going to use those different sources to respond to a crisis when it sees it coming. So you have the dashboard, which provides the information, and then you have this planning process, which allows it to identify different sources of information. And both of those things are available online at gafs.info if you want to look at the dashboard. It's a very cool product. Okay, so last bit on financing. The world is spending $625 billion supporting the agriculture sector every single year right now. How can we change the way that money is being spent to produce better diets? And I'll stop there. Thank you.
I'm sorry to stop you, because really what you're saying, coming from the World Health Organization, is really music to my ears, because it's so important to bring in the health dimension and analyze it, and talking about healthy diets that then are sustainably produced. That's also the challenge. So thank you very much for your contributions. But I do want to move on and also listen to Mr. Moussa Sow, who is the Vice President of ROPA, which is a West African Farmers Umbrella Farmer Organization, to also understand the perspective from farmers. I mean, how do you make that concrete, that we need to link the climate and nutrition agenda, talking to farmers and also talking to women farmers, because we also note from the report that gender is so important to move forward this agenda and can accelerate. So Moussa, over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me also connect from where the previous speakers applied the button. Just a reminder that when diet is right, medicine is of no use. That's my conclusion. The fact that, this is telling us, you don't have to take medicine to be better, but it's better you take good food to be better. Let me say that the GASP is the program for Global Agriculture and Food Security Program. It's the only international program where farmers are given an opportunity to sit in the steering committee. Now I want to applaud GASP for that. It's a very good move. Because the belief is when things are decided in my absence and you assume that they are for me, it is not true. Whatever is done for me, without me, is not for me. That's the belief we have. And I think that's the question that GASP have answered. They do things with us. You cannot plait my hair in my absence. You have to be present to plait my hair. And that's what exactly GASP is doing. Let me say that at the level of the farmers, it's interesting that we establish dialogues across sectors, like mentioned by the Deputy Minister. And these sectors include the public, private, development partners, NGO, and civil society. We believe that there is need to create solidarity. There is need to have an integrated approach, whereas people would use as a multi-sectoral committee to discuss about integrating climate change and nutrition. Agroecology is one way we also do, because it's a type of farming that promotes socially acceptable. You see, what we need now is not giving us money to come with new ideas. What we need now is giving us money and support the local knowledge that you found on the ground. That's where the problem is. There needs to be that connection. We need to have a synergy between traditional knowledge and science. So that meeting point is crucial, and I think that's what we need. That's why we promote agroecology, which looks at intercropping, integrated farming, rotational farming, recycling. We need to use the natural environment. We need to produce what we eat whilst we protect the environment. That's what the essence is here. So that's what we look at. And I also know that extension is quite crucial. The ratio to farmer to extension the gap is very big. And there's need to see how we close that gap. In doing that, we also do what we call farmer field schools. We also demonstration on farm demonstration. And what is important here is our yield, our nutritious content of any food depends on the type of seed you have. The certified seed is what we also promote to support our farmers. We also do a lot of resource mobilization. We work with GASP and to see that farmers are supported in economic initiatives program. We need to see how we raise our resources by ourselves, because one way we promote adaptation and resilience is when we are able to raise our own income, because food security doesn't only mean producing food. You can produce food, but it also means being able to buy food that is nutritious, not only producing food. We do also a lot of policy, examine policies, strategies, and programs. What I said initially is don't decide for me in my absence. What we do also, we follow policies in their formulation, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. I think it's a whole chain what we need to follow to be able to get to what we really want to integrate climate and nutrition. We also do also link our farmers with market, meaning that sometimes what we do go into contract farming, meaning that we see to create some tripartite agreement, using the private sector as one entry point, and also the public sector, to see that if there are contracts that can be reached at trade fairs and so. We also do capacity building using our farmer field schools, because for the fact that extension gap is quite big, and we need to see how to close that gap. Because if you have a ratio of 3,000 farmers to one extensionist, there is no way you can have the information that you need. I think that's why we also come in as farm organizations to push this issue of climate change and nutrition, and using our extension approach we call farmer field schools.
Can I ask you, like, when you do these farmer field schools, how is the topic of climate being addressed, and does that ring a bell with the farmers?
Basically, what we do is we believe in environmentally friendly approaches, economically viable and socially acceptable farming. So it means we want to produce while we protect the environment. So our farm field schools is basically looking at those approaches. How do we promote biofortified crops, for example, in our production system? But we will do all this having the mind that we need to produce food and also protect the biodiversity. So because our soil fertility, our pollination is all dependent on biodiversity. So there's need to see how you connect these different layers of production to be able to produce nutritious food.
Thank you so much. I know that you have much more to say, but I also want to open it up to questions and answers from the floor. But I really get your message that it's important to be represented in the governance structures, to make sure that really the effectiveness is increased and the voice of farmers is ensured. So I would like to open it up. I think we have a good 5 minutes before we will go to the closing session. So if you have questions to the entire panel, also from the beginning on the papers, please raise your hand, introduce yourself, and provide your comments. So let me see. Yes, I see already. Terry, please.
Thank you very much, Lena. Hello, everyone. I'm Terry Sarch. I lead the nutrition team in the United Kingdom's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. I'd like to kick off by thanking you all for such a fascinating set of presentations and discussion this morning. It's been really great, and we in the UK, we very much welcome the 2 new reports. And as Julian said, the importance of knowledge can't be underestimated. It's really important, and we in the UK are developing our own knowledge. And I just wanted to share with you that we have done our analysis of how much of our climate programming is also nutrition, either specific or sensitive. And the percentage for the year 2020 to 2021 was only 6%. So we recognize we have a lot further to go ourselves, but it's a journey that we are very keen to go on, and we're keen to work with everybody here to go on that journey to better integrate nutrition and climate. And I wanted to come to my question to the panel, really, which is, how do we have enough evidence yet to demonstrate that nutrition-sensitive programming can access climate financing? I think that really is the goal that we should be looking at, is how can we demonstrate that improving nutrition also strengthens adaptation to climate change, and thereby secure financing to do it with. And I'd really welcome the panel's feedback on that issue. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Terry. I'll take 2 more questions or comments before handing over to the panelists, if there are. Yes, please, in the back. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Paul Kiernan. I'm with the ESF division here at FAO. And first of all, I'd like to join with Terry to say thank you very much for an excellent set of presentations, very interesting and highly relevant to the work we're trying to do in food systems transformation. I'm just wondering if we could get some idea of some of the trade-offs or maybe compromises in the system as a result of trying to mobilize more on nutrition and climate, please. Thank you.
Very much. Good question. And a third one? Anyone? Okay. Very good that the UK is already doing its homework, and so we'll see that percentage from 6 going up, hopefully in the future. With regard to the first question, who wants to reply? Yeah, Jesse?
When Ben's hands up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, please first, and then.
Great, a great question, and obviously we work very closely with the FCDO. I guess when I think about the climate finance question, I keep wondering why we have a sector, the agri-food sector, that produces 1/3 of emissions and greenhouse gases, yet receives 3 or 4% of climate finance. And, you know, there's a clear alignment problem there in that we haven't figured out how to get the climate finance money. And we know the GCF is sitting on $9.3 billion today that it's having trouble dispersing. I'm not sure it's just the nutrition argument that's the problem here. It seems to be much more ingrained with our institutions and how they operate. But I think it's a huge area that we need to look forward to and work on together. So I think it's a very exciting possibility. The money is there. We need to figure out how to get it to the farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, and Jesse?
Thanks, Lena. Yeah, I think the other point I wanted to highlight is how different the language and the communication can be between the two communities. And I think I would maybe characterize it a bit less as not having the evidence on how nutrition-sensitive programs can contribute to climate, but translating that into the language that the climate community uses to talk about emissions reductions, to talk about the return on investment and so on. And I think we have a lot more to do to understand that world, that language, that policy landscape, and really translate that evidence into something those climate financing organizations really work with.
Thank you for that, Nancy.
So I'll address the second question, and thank you for that. In our report, we don't go into the trade-offs, but we do highlight that there are trade-offs. And I invite you to look at our references. We have a very long reference list where we mention that because some of those reports do go into greater detail on potential trade-offs. However, I want to come back to a comment made by Martin at the beginning, which is we need to take some of these examples that we know of, some of the approaches and response options that we have evidence for, and take them to scale. We don't have a lot of empirical evidence from scaled action. And we need to take it to scale with robust monitoring so that we can get our heads around what are those potential trade-offs when we take that to scale, and we can react to that appropriately.
Thank you very much, Nancy. That's a very good introduction or sentence that I can use to introduce our last speaker of the global coordinator of the Scaling Up Nutrition movement. We do need to take actions that work and that have evidence to scale. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Ms. Afshan Khan, the global coordinator of the Scaling Up Nutrition movement, to give her closing remarks. Over to you, Afshan.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here and I think join this very esteemed panel. I think today we've really converged under the banner of the Initiative for Climate Action and Nutrition to share what some of the interactions have been. And we clearly have a very intricate tapestry as part of the global crisis where the intersection of malnutrition and climate change persists as a complex and urgent challenge. I think we heard today about ICANN's conception by the government of Egypt during COP27. We've seen the work that's been undertaken to document additional evidence and provide a platform for sharing that data and evidence. I think Gain and Jessica mentioned these numbers serving as a mirror, reflecting our current stance, as well as we've heard from several panelists on highlighting the areas for further engagement. Again, I want to come back to the data, because when we look at that, it's very clear that we're finding ourselves at a crossroads. If there are 44% of national nutrition plans that integrate concrete climate actions, and a staggering 95% of nutrition for growth commitments seem to overlook climate or sustainability, and only 2% of the nationally determined contributions have outlined tangible steps towards addressing nutrition, there's a strong and stark contrast underscoring, I think, the urgency to elevate climate-centric paradigms with nutrition strategies, and equally to champion nutrition-centric approaches within our climate agendas. So investing in both these climate and nutrition actions could lead to significant co-benefits, I think, as many of the panelists spoke to. Clearly, the way that food systems are designed, they are responsible for over 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. So there is a financial repercussion of malnutrition resonating globally, extracting trillions from our economies, including the issue of obesity that was raised by the World Bank. So by addressing nutrition through the lens of climate, we have the potential to foster healthier, more resilient populations and fortify human capital, especially in some of the lower and middle income countries. And this is where I think the climate and nutrition pathways to impact come in with some of the data and evidence on a research and a systems approach, which is so critical, including what are some of the positive approaches that can be implemented at the country level. And we heard some positive examples of that from Lao PDR. But I do want to come back to this glaring gap that persists in our financing strategies. It is concerning that only 1% of climate-related ODA financing directly references nutrition. And as we heard from the panel, this is clearly an area ripe for innovation and for investment. As we approach COP28, many of the member states in the room will be attending. I think our focus has to remain really sharp. And just recognizing the interconnectedness of climate change and malnutrition is not enough. It's really imperative that we have some integrated approaches. Climate actions have to be sensitive to nutrition-related concerns, and conversely, nutrition interventions have to be formulated with climate adaptation in mind. So as each of you actively promote an integrated approach where nutrition is considered alongside climate in every policy, budgetary, and financing decision, offering a pathway towards healthier, more resilient populations and economies, what you can do as part of your national plans is critical. So with that, let me conclude and say we need to continue this journey towards a sustainable, resilient future where every person has the right to a healthy and nutritious diet that does not cost the earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Afshan, for these closing remarks. And thank you also for mentioning really the road to COP28 and COP28. We need to have that voice much louder to connect these agendas, that it's not only also food security, but it's nutrition security that needs to be connected with the climate agenda. I know that there's also has been a very, very active conversation online with participants, so that's nice to know. We would like to continue this conversation. As was mentioned in the beginning, there is a reception this evening at 6:15. Please come to that reception so that we can talk with you and see how further to move this agenda forward, because we have no time to lose. And with that, I would like to thank all the presenters and the panelists, participants here and online, and please make that connection. I mean, it should be now in your mind, in your brain, to automatically think, if you talk about climate, think about nutrition. If you talk about nutrition, think think about climate. There are actions ongoing. There are solutions that you can take home and start to implement. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the day.